Okay, so we're going to talk about something today that is completely unrelated to the poem in question to begin with. But it's going to be completely the point of the poem. That is kind of what poetry is, talking about something that has nothing to do with what it is that you actually mean. Now, I have some visual props here. You see some color swatches on your screen. If I were to ask you, what color is this? You would say green. And if I asked you, what color is this? You would say blue. But if I asked you, what color is this? You might not readily have as much of an answer. The same for this color here. If you spend very much time with visual arts, you would probably know that that is what is referred to as sea foam. But I don't want your liberal answer. I want, tell me whether this is blue or green. Tell me whether this is blue. Ooh, that does not look, we should not, that is inappropriate. If this is blue or green, you can't really answer, because the minute you look at one of them and you start convincing yourself that it's blue, it starts to look green. And you look at the other one and convince yourself that it's green, and by God, it starts to look more blue. I believe we have reason to believe that emotions are this very same way. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where literature lives. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in the poetry discussion playlist. The poem in question is titled "The Tide Rises, the Tide Falls" by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And it reads as such. The tide rises, the tide falls. The twilight darkens and curlew calls. Along the sea sands damp and brown, the traveler hastens toward the town. And the tide rises, the tide falls. Darkness settles on roofs and walls, but the sea in the darkness calls. The little waves with their soft white hands efface the footprints in the sands, and the tide rises. The tide falls. The morning breaks. The steeds in their stalls stamp and neigh as the hostler calls. The day returns, but never more returns the traveler to the shore. The tide rises, and the tide falls. So why do I make that point with emotions and colors at the beginning of this video? Well, just this. Kind of every culture has a word for happy. It's a very common emotion, like blue, like green, I guess we should say. Every culture has a name for sad. It's a very common emotion, like blue. But where you start to mix these emotions together into something like a happy type of sadness, we don't really have a name for that in English. We don't really have a word for that. And they kind of do in other cultures. So the one we're going to talk about is Mano no Aware, the pathos of things. And this is from Grokpedia. And also translated as empathy towards things, or a sensitivity to ephemera. This is, in my opinion, the operative word there. Ephemera. A sensitivity to ephemera is a Japanese idiom for the awareness of impermanence or transience of things, and both a transient gentle sadness or wistfulness at their passing, as well as a longer, deeper, gentle sadness about the state of reality of life. The best way, the best few words I have ever heard used to describe it is the bittersweet ache of impermanence. Now, how can I make the point that this is about happiness as well as sadness? If you're talking about an ache, if you're talking about something going away, but it is bittersweet. It is bittersweet because we have it now. The bittersweet ache of impermanence. The knowledge that the tide rises and the tide falls. Nothing is forever. Nothing is permanent. Nothing stays the way it is. But you have it the way it is right now. It might not be the best that you like it. It may not be your favorite type of whatever it is. It may not be your favorite era of whatever it is. But you do still have it. One thing that is, one area, I guess I should say, where this is not appreciated at all, but I think that maybe it should be, and I think in some ways it is celebrated in this way, just completely without recognition of what we're doing, is sports fandom. I'm not going to go all sports on you, so don't worry about that, but I think it's easy to make the point that I'm talking about. I'm a Chiefs fan, and the Kansas City Chiefs are on, well, up to this season, a very historic run. Lots of Super Bowls, lots of playoff victories, lots of regular season wins, all of this. And I love it, right? I'm a huge Chiefs fan. But in the back of my mind, when I was, say, in middle school, it was better. It was better because every game was magical. Because, for example, in football, if you have a 7-point lead and you have the ball and there are 2 minutes and 45 seconds left, all you have to do is get a first down and then you get to run the clock out. Because if the opposing team doesn't have any timeouts, right? Very mathematical, very nuanced, very rule-based, very understanding this and that, this leads to that. But when you're a kid, if there's still seconds on the clock, your team can still win. And you don't accept it until that whistle blows, right? Now, so little of the game actually matters if you kind of know the rules. You know, each team's going to get maybe 7 possessions in a game. Each team is going to run 50-ish to 65-ish offensive plays. So it becomes more mathematical. I love what the Chiefs are doing right now, but it's nowhere near as magical as it was when I was a kid. There is that impermanence of things, a bittersweet impermanence of things, but I still have the Chiefs to enjoy. And even through when I was an adult and the Chiefs were very, very bad at the sport of football, I still had that to enjoy. I still had that to look forward to. There are things like, I use the sports example because it's a very easy example to illustrate, but it's far from the only example. I really like working out. Boy, it sure isn't as good now as it was when I was 23 and I looked like I worked out, right? I don't have that anymore. That is bittersweet, because I did have it. I was the jacked guy. I was the buff guy. But I don't anymore. Still, I have those weights that I can lift. I can go run a mile. I can do push-ups, dips, jumping jacks, whatever it is. I can still tap into that. It is, regrettably, gone. But I can still embark on those workouts, right? There is, to this poem, a bit of that. The tide rises, the tide falls. Nothing we do here is forever. Nothing we do here is permanent. Nothing we do here will last until the dying embers of our nearest star collapse and engulf the world in first a heat wave and then cold death. Nothing will outlive that, nothing that we do. But we still have the things that we're doing. We still have the moments that we have. We still have the moment that we are in, so we should enjoy it. We should find some way to savor what it is that we do have. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.